The number displayed on the screen is our main line. Please be sure to bookmark the 2 websites you see on the screen. The first is our CACFP website, and the second is for the Colorado Nutrition Portal, the CNP. And again, Osreen has added those 2 links in the chat box for you. So this is our CACFP team. We have Naomi Stenson. She is our director. We have Tanya O'Connor. She is our compliance manager. We have Megan George Nichols. She works in outreach, and she's also the NSB QI performance management specialist. We have our NCs, our nutrition consultants, and that is, we have Osreen Palaske. She's with us today. We have Lisa Debitz. I believe she's joining us later on, so you might meet her. And Britt Martins is also joining us later. You might get a chance to meet her as well. We have Chrissy Nichols here with us. She's in the house. And then myself, Alicia Wager, and we have Sydney Odian Smith. She's busy doing reviews today, so we won't get to meet her, unfortunately. But she is available through her contact info. We also have a great fiscal unit. We have Audrey Christensen. She is our fiscal administrator. We have Katie Roby. She's the fiscal purchasing agent. And we have James Fazio as our fiscal compliance specialist. Our nutrition services branch operations unit consists of Julie Fancook. She is the branch operations manager, and we have Samantha Homler as our branch operations support specialist. So we would like to get to know you as well. If you could, in the chat box, type your name and the name of your center. And just for fun, if you could eat only 1 fruit for the rest of your life, what would it be? Oh, Chrissy, I just had a mango yesterday. So delicious. Hi, Sherry. And we have Crystal McDonald here from the Safe House in Denver, and she likes blueberries. I love those fresh or frozen. Sarah Bragg from AFB Child Development. She likes watermelon. We have Jill here. Hi, Jill. Favorite fruit is watermelon. We have Tanya here, and she loves pears. I just recently discovered flamingo pears. I'm not sure if anyone's ever seen those or tasted them. They're delicious. They have like a pink stripe down one side of it. We have Christy. She's from Community Development Institute, and she likes blueberries. Demica Cooper, hello. She loves strawberries. Abigail Camacho, welcome home. She's with Welcome Home, and she likes watermelon. Hi, Janet. Janet likes pineapple. And we have Kate Avidson, I believe, from Tri-County Head Start. Her favorite fruit, or her fruit of choice is grapes. We have John Salinas here and Becca Salinas from Little Mountain Climbers. Hello, Colorado Springs, and they love mangoes and pineapple, very tropical. That's my way to escape the cold Colorado winters, is to eat tropical fruit. Okay, so it looks like everyone's introduced themselves. If I missed you, I'm sorry. We're all here together. And of course, at any time you need to unmute yourself to ask a question or to chime in, please do so. Raise your hand, and we're happy to assist you. Okay, so this next slide, we're going to discuss the course objectives. In this course, you will learn about CACFP requirements specific to infants. We will discuss breast milk and formula feeding requirements, infant meal pattern requirements, including the required documentation for infants, such as infant feeding forms, infant production records, and infant ROMs. We will also review infant food components and discuss creditable, non-creditable infant foods. And lastly, we will learn how to credit store-bought infant combination foods with CACFP. So infants on the CACFP. The USDA defines an infant as birth through 11 months or up until the baby's first birthday. If an institution participates in the CACFP and claims reimbursement for meals served to older children in care, they must also claim reimbursement for any meals served to infants while in care. And there are specific infant-specific requirements for CACFP, which we will cover in this presentation. So in this slide, we're going to talk about becoming a breastfeeding-friendly center. Colorado moms want to breastfeed. In fact, 89% of moms start breastfeeding, but only 25% breastfeed exclusively for 6 months. And of that 25%, only 41% continue to breastfeed for at least 1 year. Most people are aware of the benefits breastfeeding offers for mom and baby, but childcare providers can also benefit. Breastfed babies are sick less often, they spit up less, and usually have less smelly diapers compared to formula-fed babies. And as a childcare professional, you can play a critical role when supporting moms to achieve their breastfeeding goals. It's pretty awesome. By sharing your knowledge and support with breastfeeding families, you can help improve the health and the well-being of the children in your care. And CACFP, we strongly recommend adopting a breastfeeding-friendly policy at your institution. So let mothers know that your childcare site will support their breastfeeding efforts. CACFP strongly encourages institutions to offer mothers a clean, comfortable, and quiet place to breastfeed their babies and pump breast milk. This could be a space in a small room or a corner of a classroom or office with a privacy screen or a curtain. And Osreen just added a USDA resource, the one you see on our slide, to the chat box. You can download it and take a look at that. So breastfeeding on the CACFP. If a mother breastfeeds her baby on the grounds of your center, the meal or the snack can be claimed for reimbursement with CACFP. If the mother chooses to leave the premises to breastfeed, the meal or snack would not be reimbursable. However, if she sits in her car in the parking lot, that will count as on-site. In order to claim meals and snacks with CACFP for infants who were breastfed directly while in your care, you will need to document it correctly. Instead of documenting the amount of breast milk that was offered, the infant care staff must simply document breastfed, BF, nursed, or other wording of choice on the infant production record. And please note that we are going to cover this more extensively in greater detail later on in the presentation. So feeding breastfed infants. Suggest that families get the baby used to taking breast milk from a bottle that is offered from someone other than the mother at least 2 weeks before the baby starts childcare. Encourage parents to provide a backup supply of frozen or refrigerated breast milk for times when the baby wants to eat more or the parent is running late. And all breast milk should be clearly labeled with the baby's full name and the date the milk was pumped. You do not accept or use an unlabeled bottle. You want to keep the breast milk refrigerated until it's time to feed the baby. So storing breast milk on site. Institutions must store pumped breast milk according to health and safety regulations as displayed on this slide. If your local authorities have stricter regulations for handling and storing food, including breast milk or formula, then please follow those guidelines. But you're going to want to store breast milk in the back of the refrigerator where the temperature is always cold. The front of the refrigerator can be warmer because of the door opening. So you want to store the breast milk so the bottle, and you also want to store the breast milk so the bottle with the oldest date is served first. So here are some resources for you. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment offers a breastfeeding and care toolkit. It's a really awesome kit. The kit contains valuable information about feeding infants breast milk, formula, and solids, troubleshooting issues for breastfed babies, such as growth spurts and nursing strikes, and proper breast milk preparation and storage. The toolkit also features guidance and policies, recommendations to become a breastfeeding friendly childcare center. So Asreen added that link to the toolkit to the chat box. You can go ahead and click on that, take a look at it. And the USDA also created an infant feeding guide. This guide is a helpful tool for childcare providers to understand the CACFP meal pattern requirements. It also includes best practices for feeding babies in a way that supports their growth and development. And this guide will help you answer questions about what to feed babies and how to offer meals that are reimbursable in the CACFP. So this is a detailed guide offering guidance to childcare providers, including breastfeeding and formula feeding requirements and best practices, handling and storing breast milk and formula, feeding solid foods, buying and preparing baby foods, and a lot more. So the link to this resource has been added to the chat box as well. So we are going to take a break from me just talking, and I'm going to launch a poll for you guys, for everyone. The first poll reads, if a mother breastfeeds her baby on site, can that meal or snack be claimed for the CACFP reimbursement? I'm going to give everyone just a few minutes to answer this poll. I think most people have voted, and I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So we have 96% of the group answered yes, and we have 4% of the group answered no. So the correct answer is yes. If a mother breastfeeds her baby on site, that meal or snack can be claimed for reimbursement. Really great news. So we are going to do one more poll. Stop sharing that. Okay. Go to poll number 2. Poll number 2 reads, if an infant was breastfed on site, do you need to complete the infant production record? Okay, so it looks like most of us have voted, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. And it looks like everyone in the group that voted yes, that if an infant was breastfed on site, you do need to complete the infant production record by simply documenting breastfed or BF or nursed or other wording of choice that the infant was breastfed on site. Okay, great. You guys did great with those. So next we're going to talk about formula-fed infants in the CACFP. In the CACFP infant meal patterns, in the CACFP infant meal pattern, a site must offer at least one iron-fortified infant formula that is regulated by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. The FDA has strict nutrition and safety standards for infant formula to make sure that infants are getting the nutrients they need for healthy growth. All infant formulas sold in the United States are regulated by the FDA. And if an infant formula was bought from a place online or outside of the United States, it is likely not to be regulated by the FDA and should not be used. While you must offer at least one iron-fortified infant formula, the type of infant formula fed to the baby is a decision that should be made by the baby's parents and healthcare provider. So here we're going to talk about infant formula requirements. Iron-fortified infant formula is required in the CACFP for infants who are not breastfed or are partially breastfed. Iron supports the baby's growth and brain development. And to make sure the iron-fortified infant formula you offer is creditable in the CACFP, you can look for infant formula with iron or a similar statement on the front of the formula package. And you can also use the nutrition fact label as a guide to make sure that the formula has enough iron. And to be considered iron fortified, an infant formula must have 1 milligram of iron or more per 100 calories of formula when prepared using the labeled directions. So these are creditable infant formulas. Soy-based, low lactose, and lactose-free formulas are creditable in the CACFP as long as they are iron fortified. No additional documentation is required for you to serve these formulas as part of a reimbursable meal or snack. Soy-based infant formula was developed for infants who cannot tolerate infant formula made from cow's milk. So there are both cow's milk based formulas and soy formulas that can be used for infants with lactose intolerance. So lactose intolerance means that the body can't digest a sugar found in milk products called lactose. And lactose intolerance is very rare in healthy babies. So we have special infant formulas. As a child care site participating in the CACFP, you must make substitutions to meals for participants with a disability or a medical need. If the iron fortified infant formula does not meet the needs of a baby with a disability or medical need due to a special dietary need, then another infant formula can be substituted by you or the parents. These formulas can include FDA exempt infant formulas or low iron infant formulas. And Osreen just added a full list of the exempt formulas to the chat box, and you can just click on that link and it'll take you to that list. So these formulas may only be served as part of a reimbursable meal if the substitution is supported by a special diet statement signed by a medical professional. Okay, so what is the special diet statement? The special diet statement must include the name of the infant formula to be avoided, and it must explain how the infant formula affects the baby, and it must also give a recommendation for substitutions of infant formula. So please note that institutions must comply with the request and purchase and provide the substitute indicated on the special diet statement. And the special diet statements must be signed by a medical professional, and the special diet statement must be updated for infants every 6 months. So please keep the special diet statements on file in a secure location at your childcare site if you have them filled out for infants that need them. So the form on this slide is available on our website in English and Spanish. The link was just added to the chat box. And please note, you are not required to use this template. However, all the required information must be provided even if you're not using the CACFP special diet statement template. Okay, so next we're going to discuss the infant feeding forms. According to the new meal pattern requirements implemented October 1st, 2017, centers must have an infant feeding form for all enrolled infants, regardless of whether they are breastfed or formula fed. The infant feeding form template displayed on the slide is available to you on our website, and Osreen added the link to the chat box again for you. And during your CACFP review, your nutrition consultant will request and review all of your infant feeding forms for all your infants enrolled in your institution. So we're going to go through this infant feeding form together. It's pretty simple and straightforward, but we're going to go through each section of it together. So the institutions should ensure the infant feeding forms are complete and accurate. The top portion of the form should be completed by the institution, indicating the facility's name and the formulas offered by the facility. All institutions are required to offer at least one choice of formula, and the CACFP strongly recommends offering two choices of formula, one milk-based and one soy-based. So parents and guardians must complete the middle section by writing the infant's name and date of birth. They must indicate if the baby is breastfed or, They must indicate if the baby is breastfed and breast milk will be supplied, or if the infant is formula fed. If the infant is formula fed, the parent or guardian must indicate if they will accept the formula provided by the center or if they will supply their own. And if the infant is both breastfed and formula fed, the parent or guardian must select the breast milk option as well as the appropriate formula option. So the baby's parent may decide to use the iron fortified infant formula you provide. They may decline the offered infant formula and bring their own. They may provide breast milk only, including breastfeeding their baby at your care site. They may provide breast milk and supplement with the iron fortified infant formula you provide. And they may provide breast milk and supplement with their own infant formula. So giving a baby both breast milk and infant formula is creditable in the CACFP, but be sure to feed the baby their mother's breast milk first, and then the infant formula. And you can claim the meal for reimbursement in any of these situations as long as you provide all of the required food components. Parents and guardians may also provide foods for their infant to consume while in your care. And this option will be explained in further detail on the next slide. So parents supplying food components. Parents and guardians are permitted to supply one food component to an infant's meal or snacks, and the institution can still claim that meal and snack with the CACFP. If a parent or guardian supplies more than one component for a meal or snack, that meal or snack may not be claimed for reimbursement. For example, if a parent supplies breast milk and peaches while the institution supplies infant cereal at breakfast, the institution may not claim that meal for reimbursement because the parent provided two components, the breast milk and the peaches. However, if a parent guardian provides infant formula and the institution provides chicken and green beans for lunch, that meal may be claimed for reimbursement because the parent or guardian only provided the one component, the formula. Okay, so the last section of the infant feeding form is the signature section. Parents must sign and date the form in order for the form to be considered valid. And a child care representative, such as a director or an infant room teacher, should review the form for completion and accuracy and sign as well. So here's an example of a completed infant form. As you can see, the top section is completed by the Child Care Center representative. The parent completed the middle section, indicating that the infant is breastfed. And the form was signed by the parent and by the child care representative down at the bottom. Okay, time for another poll. This one is a true or false. A site must offer at least one iron fortified infant formula that is regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. All right. Thank you for voting, everyone. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So the answer is true, and it looks like 97% of the group got that correct. A site must offer at least one iron fortified infant formula that is regulated by the FDA. Oh, we're going to do a few polls actually. So get ready to click your answers. All right, so the next poll reads, how many components of a reimbursable meal can a parent or guardian provide for their infant? Okay, it looks like most of us have voted, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So it looks like the majority of us voted for one, and then we have a few people who voted 2, 3, and there is no limit for infants. So there might be a little bit of confusion around this question, but the answer is 1. The parent may provide one component for the infant meal pattern, and that meal or snack can still be provided. Like I had given the example earlier of the parent providing breast milk and peaches, and then the child care center provided infant cereal for lunch. 2 of those 3 components were provided by the parent, and so that meal was not creditable. However, if the parent had only provided breast milk or even just peaches, that meal would have been creditable with the CACFP because it was just the one component. Okay, next poll. If you have any questions about that, any further questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or ask the question in the chat box. So we have in this question, which of the following formulas are considered creditable with CACFP without a special diet statement? So choose all that apply. It's a multiple choice. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. It looks like we had the majority of the group chose the first three. Again, this was a multiple choice, so you could choose multiple answers. And a few of us chose the last one as well, the low iron infant formula. So the correct answers are the iron fortified soy-based infant formula, the iron fortified low lactose infant formula, and the iron fortified lactose-free infant formula. Those are all creditable with the CACFP without a special diet statement. The low iron infant formula, it can be creditable if the infant has a special diet statement signed by a medical professional, but you will need the special diet statement on file for that infant if they are requesting that substitution for the low iron infant formula. Okay, next poll. I believe this is our last one for a little bit. Oh no, there's two more. Okay, so this one asks, how often must the special diet statement be updated for infants? Annually, every 6 months, every 3 months, or special diet statements have no expiration date? I see we have an infant in our training. Christy, do you have a baby on your lap? Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So 80% of us answered every 6 months, and then a few of us answered annually and 3 months, and one person answered there are no expiration dates. The correct answer is every 6 months, so twice a year. They do need to be updated every 6 months. Babies are growing and changing rapidly, and so we want to make sure and ensure that those special diet statements are current and up to date every 6 months. Okay, last poll for now. True or false, you must have an infant feeding form on file for all enrolled infants. Okay, so I'm going to end poll and share the results. It looks like everyone answered true, and that is the correct answer. You must have an infant feeding form on file for all enrolled infants. During your review, just as a reminder, your nutrition consultant will be requesting those forms, and we will be reviewing them for accuracy and completion. Okay. So moving on to the infant meal pattern. So there are two infant age groups under the CACFP infant meal pattern. They are birth through 5 months and 6 through 11 months. A meal or snack is reimbursable with CACFP as long as all required food components are offered to an infant during the course of the day while the infant is in your care. We will discuss the meal pattern requirements for the two infant age groups next in this presentation. And Osreen added the infant meal pattern chart to the chat box for your resource, as a resource to you. So first we'll discuss birth through 5 months. This is the meal pattern for birth through 5 months. You'll notice the red box on the meal pattern. We're going to discuss that, so keep your eye on that. For infants from birth through the end of 5 months, breast milk and or iron fortified formula are the only required components. Please note that the minimum required serving sizes for each meal and snack. So this is the minimum required serving size for each meal and snack. For all 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and supper, as well as snacks, The minimum required serving size for formula or breast milk is the same, 4 to 6 fluid ounces. This means that as long as you serve the minimum required portion size of breast milk or formula, you can claim that meal or snack for reimbursement with CACFP. If a parent wants to offer solid foods to an infant 5 months or younger, the food is considered extra and no additional documentation is required for CACFP reimbursement. So a note from the parent or guardian stating infants should receive solid food is recommended just as best practice. So here we have the infant meal pattern for 6 to 11 months. For infants 6 to 11 months, care providers still need to provide breast milk or iron fortified infant formula while also gradually introducing solid foods. So please note the required portion sizes for breast milk and formula for this age group. It is different than from the 0 to 5 months age group. So 6 to 8 fluid ounces of breast milk or iron fortified infant formula or portions of both is required for breakfast, lunch, and supper. And 2 to 4 fluid ounces of breast milk, iron fortified infant formula or both is required for snack. So most infants are ready to begin eating solids around 6 months of age. And the minimum serving sizes are also listed as ranges for infants because they, not all infants are ready to eat solid foods at the same time. So an infant that has not yet started solid foods would receive a serving size of 0 tablespoons. An infant that has just started eating a certain vegetable may receive 1 tablespoon. And once an infant has been regularly eating a specific solid food, he or she would receive 2 tablespoons or more. In all of these instances, the meal would be reimbursable with CACFP. But you want to remember that in order to claim for CACFP reimbursement, parents and guardians can supply a maximum of 1 component, and the center must provide the rest of the components. So for example, if a parent or guardian is providing breast milk or formula for an infant who started consuming solid foods, the institution would have to provide all the other required food components served to this infant in order to claim them on the CACFP for reimbursement. So 1 food component provided by parent or guardians that meets the infant meal pattern requirements may also be part of a reimbursable meal. And if a parent brings a food component such as pureed meat, you must offer iron fortified infant formula and all other required food components in order to claim that infant for CACFP reimbursement. So I have a question from Kate. I'm going to read it out loud, and there's no such thing as a dumb question. So an infant receiving remote services and not attending in person at the center, do we still need an IFF infant on file for them? So Kate, can you explain that a little bit for us, like what your situation is? Maybe we can help you out. Oh, okay. Yeah, gosh, this is new to me. Osreen, do you want to chime in? I would say yes, that you would have one, but just as best practice, and hopefully, the child will be receiving in-person services soon, again with you. Yeah, Osreen, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think Kate, you kind of answered. So they're receiving services virtually, but not receiving meals, so you're not claiming them. Yeah, so then you don't. no need to worry about it.
Okay, so we have some questions coming in and I'm pausing to read them, so I apologize. Okay, so Emily, that is the minimum required serving size. So if you are able to, but the parent only wants the child to be breastfed. I think if just as long as they are providing the minimum serving size, which is what is that, for 4 to 6 fluid ounces for breast milk, then the meal would still be reimbursable for that infant. Am I reading that correctly?
I think I read it a little bit differently. I think, Emily, are you saying that they don't provide enough just in order to serve those 4 ounces? And if that's the case,
I figured it's easier to say it out loud. Yeah, we've had parents of younger infants request that they only have like 2 or 3 ounces of breast milk, and so they'll only provide that, so it wouldn't meet that threshold. So would that mean then we couldn't get reimbursed for it?
so that's a very good question. It's in this training. I don't think we covered it yet.
Okay.
So for breast milk only, there is an exception to that rule. So I think it's like the bottom right corner of the infant feeding form, it tells you that if it's a breastfed infant and they normally consume less than that minimum required amount, it's okay if you provide less. As long as you give them more if they're still hungry, and then you can still claim them. But this is just for breast milk and not for formula.
Okay. I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead, but while it's on my mind, if they then get to the age where, I mean, this is totally theoretical because this hasn't happened with us, but if they get to the age where they're then consuming solid foods in like small quantities, and then they're not having formula, they're still just breast milk, but they don't provide the 6 ounces minimum, does that then no longer become reimbursable because they're not strictly on breast milk? Or is it still because it's breast milk and the parents provide it, it's an exception because we can't control that?
Yeah, that's the second option. It's still
Okay.
even if they're older, as long as they're still breastfed or breast milk fed, not formula fed, it's okay to give them less.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, but I would say also, just let me add, if that infant is hungry and showing you signs that they're hungry, then I would try to ask for more. But,
right, definitely.
Right, or maybe ask them if it's okay if you give them formula, or just have a conversation with them. And but if that's all they need and all they want, and if it's enough for them, it's okay to claim them still and document less for breast milk.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so we have one more question that we'll get to. I'm going to attempt to answer it. So the question is, when serving a certain amount of food, does that have to be all at once or a little at a time? Again, we do cover this later on in the presentation, but it's the minimum required serving size must be offered, but it doesn't mean that the child has to eat that entire serving size all at once. Osreen, Chrissy, do you want to chime in? Did I answer that? Am I reading that correctly? Oh, good. We have some great questions coming in.
I think so. Yeah, and we do, Virginia, we do talk about that we will talk about it in a little bit. But I think what you're asking, like, let's say they eat, they get maybe formula at 9, and then they have some peaches at 10:30. That's okay. You can still write all of that under breakfast and claim it under breakfast. You can break it up into multiple meals and then just claim them under those, breakfast, lunch, snack, or whatever you're claiming. Let me know if I didn't answer it.
Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to move on. We do have one more question, but I'm going to ask that Chrissy or Asreen type it in, or if we need to discuss it, we can. So I'm going to keep going. Let's see, we got through that. So we're going to talk next about the infant production records. For both infant age groups, you are required to maintain infant production records. The CACFP infant production records are specific to the age groups 0 to 5 months, and 6 to 11 months. Production records are required for all infants and must be maintained in order to claim the infant meals for CACFP reimbursement. And the CACFP production record template will also help you make sure you're meeting the infant meal pattern requirements discussed previously in this presentation. On the left-hand side of the form, all of the required components and the minimum required serving sizes are listed for each meal and snack. You'll see, once you look through the form and familiarize yourself with it, it looks a lot less confusing. On the slide, you can see an example of the production record for 0 to 5 month old infants. And as you can see, the only required food component for this age group is infant formula, infant iron fortified infant formula, or breast milk. And the minimum required serving size is the same for all meals and snacks. So Asreen, thank you. She just added the production record for 0 to 5 months to the chat box. And please note, for infants 0 to 5 months, the meals and snacks for 1 month can be documented in a single production record. So this is for 1 whole month for 1 infant. Production record for 1 whole month for 1 infant. So here's an example of a completed 0 to 5 month infant production record. You'll see the child's name up top, the age, the date of birth. This child is breastfed, and there is no formula provided by the parent. Child care providers should write down the amount of breast milk and formula offered to the infant, not what the infant consumed. For example, if an infant was offered 6 ounces of formula, but only consumed 3 ounces, the child care provider should document 6 ounces on the production record, because that's what was offered. Please note the footnote highlighted at the bottom of the production record. Because this answers your question, Kate, I believe. Because breastfed babies generally consume less milk than formula-fed babies, a serving size of breast milk that is less than the minimum required amount may be offered with additional breast milk offered if the infant is still hungry. This exception only applies to breastfed babies. So next we have an infant production record for 6 to 11 months. It looks a little bit different. On the left-hand side of the form, all of the required components and the minimum required serving sizes are listed for each meal and snack. And as you can see, there are different requirements for breakfast, lunch, supper, and snack. And we are going to discuss this in more detail in this next in this presentation. So again, we've offered this resource to you in the chat box. So be sure to click on the link and save it or bookmark it. Please note that infants 6 to 11 months, for infants 6 to 11 months, the production record documents meals and snacks for just 1 week. So the last production record we looked at for 0 to 5 months, that was a record for 1 whole month. This one is only for 1 week. So infant meal patterns, breakfast, lunch, and supper. For infants 6 months and older, for lunch and or supper, same as for breakfast, in order to claim for CACFP reimbursement, you must serve 6 to 8 fluid ounces of iron fortified infant formula, breast milk, or portions of both. Additionally, you will start to offer infant solid foods after the parents told you that the child is developmentally ready and is eating solid foods at home. Minimum serving sizes are listed as ranges for infants starting with a 0 because not all babies are ready to eat solid foods at the same time. However, once an infant is regularly eating solid foods, you must offer all required food components in order to claim for CACFP reimbursement. So for lunch, the required food components are 6 to 8 ounces of iron fortified infant formula or breast milk, or portions of both, and 4 tablespoons of infant formula, iron fortified infant cereal. Or you can offer 4 tablespoons of meat, fish, poultry, whole eggs, beans, or 2 ounces of cheese, or 4 ounces of yogurt or cottage cheese. And we want to offer 2 tablespoons of vegetable, fruit, or a combination of both. So the infant fortified, iron fortified infant cereal, it's and or. So it's this and these or these components here. But you do want to add 0 to 2 tablespoons of fruit or vegetable to their meal. Okay, moving on. So now we're going to talk about infant meal patterns for the snack. So for infants 6 months or older for snack, in order to claim for CACFP reimbursement, you must serve 2 to 4 fluid ounces of iron fortified infant formula. Finally got that right. Breast milk or portions of both. Additionally, you will start to offer infants solid foods after the parents told you that the child is developmentally ready and is eating solid foods at home. Minimum serving sizes are listed as ranges for infants starting with a 0 because not all babies are ready to eat solid foods at the same time. However, once an infant is regularly eating solid foods, you must offer all required food components in order to claim for CACFP reimbursement. For snack, the required food components are 2 to 4 fluid ounces of iron fortified infant formula or breast milk or portions of both, and 4 tablespoons of iron fortified infant cereal or ready to eat cereal, or a half a slice of bread or 2 crackers. And you also want to serve 2 tablespoons of vegetable fruit or a combination of both. So please note that ready to eat infant cereal is only allowed at snack time, not for breakfast, lunch, or supper. So introducing solids. Institutions should consult with parents and guardians for when to introduce solids and what foods to try. When offering new foods, watch for allergic reactions such as rash, hives, irritability, or vomiting. Make sure to report any potential allergic reactions to the parent or guardian. Textures should be modified and advanced to meet the infant's changing developmental stages and abilities. So solid textures are generally advanced from pureed, mashed, to ground, and diced. So you want to make sure to avoid foods that are choking hazards, no matter the infant's age or stage of development. Foods that present choking hazard to infants include grapes, nuts, seeds, hot dogs, popcorn, and other similar texture foods. And around 7 to 8 months of age, most infants should be eating solid foods from all food groups, including vegetables, fruits, meat alternates, grains, and dairy. So infant production records, again, here's the completed one for ages 6 months through 11 months. Child care providers must write down the amount of breast milk or formula offered to the infant, as well as the food items offered. If the parent indicates that the baby is not yet eating solid foods, continue to offer the infant the required amount of breast milk or iron fortified infant formula. And the infant meal is still reimbursable if solid foods are not served because the baby may not be developmentally ready for solids. But just as long as the formula or the breast milk is offered, the meal is still creditable. Provide the parent with information on the benefits of offering the baby solid foods once the baby is developmentally ready. And if parents inform you that the baby is eating solid foods, then you must check or you must serve the solid foods in order to claim reimbursement for that infant meal or snack. So once the solid foods have been introduced by the parent or guardian to an infant, you must follow the infant meal pattern requirements for the reimbursable meals with CACFP. And last part of the infant production record, this is just note that this production record is 2 pages. The second page offers some helpful information on the infant food abbreviations. Oh, I am going to sneeze. I'm going to mute myself. Oh, maybe not. Okay. So we have one more poll, and then I'm going to hand it over to Asreen. She's going to present the second half of the training. But before I leave you guys, I'm going to ask you one more question. It is a true or false question. Once solid foods have been introduced to an infant, you must follow the infant meal pattern requirements for the reimbursable meals with CACFP. Okay, it looks like most of us have voted, and I'm going to end the poll and share the results. The answer is true, and it looks like most of us answered true. A few of us answered false. Once solid foods have been introduced to an infant, you must follow the infant meal pattern requirements in order for those meals to be reimbursable with CACFP. Okay. Again, if you have any additional questions on that, please put them in the chat box or unmute yourself and we will assist. Okay, so now Asreen is taking over. Thank you, Asreen.
All right. So I do have a few questions in the chat. This is a longer training, so sorry if you feel like we're rushing through. Feel free to stop us and ask questions. I hope I answered Virginia's question in the chat. Virginia, if I didn't, let me know. Oh, and this is just a logistic question. So, okay. All right, moving on with the training. Okay, can you see my screen okay? Alicia, can you show me a thumbs up if that's good? Okay, perfect. All right, so this is our records of meals served form. This is not new information and not specific to infants, but it is here just to remind you that you do need to have a records of meals served form for infants as well. So you are welcome to use our template. It is on our website, and Alicia will add that link for you in the chat box in just a minute. But you're also welcome to create your own form. If you do create your own form, send it to your nutrition consultant for approval, just to make sure that you're meeting all of the requirements. And then just same as for other participants. So you should only mark your ROMs when you're offering creditable meals and snacks to your infants. As a reminder, infants who are developmentally ready and have been introduced to solid foods from all the food groups should be offered all the required food components for each meal and snack in order to claim those meals and snacks for CACFP reimbursement. So if someone already showed you the signs that they are ready to eat, they're accepting all the food groups, you shouldn't be offering just 1 tablespoon of vegetables or one, just something that's not meeting all of those requirements that Alicia talked about. But we also take the infant's usual eating habits into account here at CACFP. So as long as all of the required foods and amounts of foods are offered to the infant during the day, those meals are reimbursable under the CACFP. And I think that's something that we talked about earlier when some of the questions came up. So for those infants that would eat less than what you offer them, that's okay. And you can still claim that reimbursement with the CACFP, even if they end up eating less of the foods, but then you would offer more at different times of the day. So for example, if the baby may be offered breast milk at 9 a.m. for breakfast, and then be offered infant cereal and pureed fruit at 10:30, based on what the baby showed signs that they're hungry again. And this would be a creditable breakfast with CACFP. So you don't necessarily have to offer all of the required components at once. And that is a requirement for other participants, but not so much for infants. And you should have separate ROMs for each classroom of participants, including infants. ROMs should be confidential, so please don't put eligibility codes on your ROMs until you're actually completing the claims. And ROMs should list first and last names of the participants being claimed and must match those income eligibility forms. And we're not going to talk about income eligibility forms in this training because this is not a requirement that is specific to infants, but it does apply to infants. All right, so we're going to do an activity, which I hope will help kind of understand how to complete the infant production records and infant ROMs a little bit better. So we're going to look at a few different scenarios. So we're going to start with Mary. And so our infant is Mary Lamb. She is 5 months old. And for breakfast, she was breastfed by her mother on site. And her mother also provided 1 tablespoon of mashed bananas. For lunch, she was breastfed on site by her mother. And for the PM snack, she was offered 2 ounces of bottled breast milk, and she did not drink any of it. So we're pretending that we are infant classroom teachers, and we are going to complete the infant production record and the records of meals served for this infant. So on the production record for breakfast, we would document breastfed because her mother breastfed her child on site. So we can go ahead and document that. And she was also offered 1 tablespoon of mashed bananas, but we would not document that for this infant because she's under 6 months. So we're still on that 0 to 5 months production record. We don't have a space to document any other solid foods. And those are considered extra for younger infants. So if they're under 6 months, anything other than breast milk or formula would be considered extra. And then for lunch, she was again breastfed on site. So we would document that on our production record. And then for the PM snack, she was offered 2 ounces of breast milk. Although she didn't drink any of it, we are documenting what we offered and not what was consumed. So we would go ahead and offer and document 2 ounces of breast milk. Now we need to decide which one of these meals and snacks could we claim with CACFP for reimbursement. So which one of these we would document on our ROMs. So for breakfast, she was breastfed on site. So we can go ahead and document that and claim that meal, because if they're breastfed on site, it's okay to claim them. So we would go ahead and mark breakfast. Even though she was offered another component by her mother, so her mother technically did offer two of the required components, but since she's under 6 months, any solid foods are considered extra and we're not counting them. I hope that didn't confuse anyone. Then for lunch, same as breakfast, her mother breastfed her on site, so we can go ahead and claim that meal as well. And then for snack, we offered her less than the required amount. However, this is breast milk. And that, as we discussed earlier, it's okay to offer less of the breast milk to those infants who regularly consume less, as long as we are able to offer more if needed. So we can go ahead and claim that snack as well, even though she didn't drink any of it, but we did offer it. So we would claim breakfast, lunch, and the PM snack for this infant. All right, let's look at another scenario. So this infant is older. The infant's name is Jack, and he's 7 months old. And for breakfast, he was offered 6 ounces of iron fortified infant formula and ate 4 ounces. And he also ate 1 ounce of yogurt and 1 tablespoon of pureed apples. For lunch, he was offered and ate 6 ounces of iron fortified infant formula, 2 tablespoons of ground turkey, which was provided by his parent, and 1 tablespoon of cooked carrots that also were provided by the parent. And then for the PM snack, Jack was offered and ate 4 ounces of iron fortified infant formula, 1 tablespoon of pureed pears, and 1 cracker. So let's go ahead and fill out his production record. So for breakfast, we offered 6 ounces of formula. Even though he only ate 4 of them, we would still document 6 because we're documenting what we offered. And then we also offered him and he ate 1 ounce of yogurt. So we document that under yogurt, and 1 tablespoon of pureed apples. So we'll document that here. And then we have a list of abbreviations for you. It's on the other side of the infant production record. It sometimes makes it easier to document it because you can't quite fit a lot on that little space that you have. So those can come in handy. And then for lunch, we offered 6 ounces of iron fortified infant formula, and he drank all of them. So we're going to document 6 ounces, what we offered. And then he was also offered 2 tablespoons of ground turkey and 1 tablespoon of cooked carrots. So we're going to document all of that. And then for the PM snack, 4 ounces of formula, 1 tablespoon of pears, and 1 cracker. All right, so now which ones of these meals and snacks can we claim with CACFP? All right, could we claim breakfast? See a lot of cameras that are off. Anyone want to type in the chat maybe if breakfast would be creditable? We offered 6 ounces of formula, 1 ounce of yogurt, and 1 tablespoon of apples. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of yes coming in. Yes, that is correct. We can go ahead and claim that breakfast, even though we didn't offer him all the minimum required amounts, but he's only 7 months. He's probably just starting to eat solid foods. So that is okay that we're not quite getting there to those required minimum amounts. So yes, you're all correct. We can go ahead and offer claim breakfast. And then what about lunch? Can we claim lunch as well? See a couple no's. Yeah, so you're correct. We would not be able to claim lunch because the ground beef and the carrots both were provided by the parent. So even though we provided the formula, parents provided 2 components, and that is not creditable, or that's not claimable with CACFP. So we could not claim lunch. And what about snack? We provided all of the components. Yep, I'm seeing some yeses. Perfect. That is correct. We can claim the snack. Well done. All right, our last example, Charlotte. So Charlotte is 11 months. Let me just mention, so Charlotte has been introduced to all of the foods already and is able and has been eating those required minimum amounts. So for her, we do want to see, those minimum portion sizes on her production record. So for breakfast, she was offered 6 ounces of breast milk, ate 5, 3 tablespoons of iron fortified infant cereal, and 2 tablespoons of peaches. For lunch, she was breastfed by her mother on site, ate 4 tablespoons of ground chicken that was provided by her mother, and 2 tablespoons of corn. And then for snack, she was offered 4 tablespoons of Chex cereal and 1 tablespoon of banana. So we'll go ahead and first document that on the production record. So on production record, we write down everything that we offered, whether it was offered by the center or by the parent. So we'll go ahead and write that down. So 6 ounces of breast milk is what we offered, although she only drank 5. 3 tablespoons of infant cereal and 2 tablespoons of, I forgot what the vegetable was, or the fruit, let's see, peaches, 2 tablespoons of peaches. And then for lunch, it was breastfed on site. Also was offered 4 tablespoons of ground chicken that was provided by her mother and 2 tablespoons of corn. And then for PM snack, she was offered 4 tablespoons of Chex and 1 tablespoon of bananas. All right, so which ones of these meals and snacks can we claim? What about breakfast? Can we claim the breakfast? Oh, I see a lot of yeses. So this would actually be a no because we didn't offer her that minimum amount of cereal. So if it's an infant that is able to accept and has been accepting, we do want to see you offering that minimum required amount. So we would want to see 4 tablespoons of cereal. So technically, we couldn't quite claim her because we didn't offer her enough for breakfast. What about lunch? See some no's and some yeses. So for lunch would also be a no because she was breastfed by her mother. And then she was also provided chicken by her mother. So her mother provided 2 components. So even though for lunch she was offered enough, but 2 of those components were provided by her parent. So we could not claim lunch. And what about the snack? See, 1 no, 1 yes, a couple no's. Yep, so for a snack would also be a no, and that is because we didn't offer one of the required components, which would be breast milk in this situation. And we also didn't offer enough of the bananas. So we could not claim any of the meals for Charlotte. Any questions about this activity? Okay, moving on for the sake of time. Okay, so infants should be fed on demand and should not be restricted to a rigid feeding schedule. You may find that some infants need to be fed every 2 hours and will receive 5 to 6 meals while in care. You want always to listen to infant cues. They will let you know if they are hungry by opening their mouths to the touch of a nipple or spoon, and they will close their mouths and turn their heads away from the nipple or spoon, or may push the food out when they're not hungry. You should never force infants to finish a bottle or eat semi-solid foods. Okay, so each meal and snack under the infant meal patterns is made up of food components. In some cases, there are several foods you may offer to meet the food component. These are indicated by the use of word "or" after each component on the infant production record and the infant meal pattern chart discussed previously in this presentation. We will discuss the infant food components and specific requirements for each. So there are 4 infant food components: breast milk and or infant formula, fruit and vegetable component, meat alternate component, and then the grain component, which actually grains and meat alternates are kind of lumped together into one, but we will discuss them as 4 separate components. So very briefly, formula and breast milk, because Alicia talked a lot about those already. But just to kind of revisit it a little bit. So breast milk or formula or portions of both must be served at each meal and snack in order to claim with CECFP. It is recommended that breast milk be served in place of formula from birth through 11 months. I know it's not your decision. Minimum required portion sizes must be offered at each meal and snack according to the meal patterns discussed previously. For some breastfed infants who regularly consume less than the minimum amount of breast milk per feeding, a serving of less than the required amount of breast milk may be offered, with additional breast milk offered at a later time if needed. And the infant formula must be iron fortified. And if not, then you need to have that special diet statement on file. And there are some other non-creditable milk options for infants. So these are not creditable, should not be served to infants unless you have that special diet statement on file that tells you that it's okay to serve these. All right, so the fruit and vegetable component. So to increase the amount of fruit and vegetables consumed, the infant meal patterns require food and or vegetables to be served at all meals and snacks when the infant is developmentally ready. In the infant meal pattern, fruits and vegetables are considered one component. This means that institutions may serve a fruit, a vegetable, or a combination of both to fulfill this requirement. Fruits and vegetables may be served in a wide range of textures, including pureed, mashed, cooked, or diced. Juice, even 100% juice, is not creditable for infants and should not be served to infants. Okay, we'll do a quick poll. Just to make sure you're paying attention. Which of the following options would meet the CECFP meal pattern fruit vegetable component? And this is a multiple choice question, so select all that apply. Applesauce, pureed cooked broccoli, combination of pureed apples and broccoli, or 100% apple juice. Okay, I think you're slowing down, so I'm gonna end it. Very well done. So you're all correct. The top 3 are the creditable options for fruit and vegetable component with CECFP. Only the 100% apple juice is not creditable for infants. Okay, the next component is the meat alternate component. Meats and poultry are good first foods for babies because they provide iron and zinc that babies need around 6 months of age. There are many meat alternate options that are creditable with the CECFP, and they would include meat and poultry. And this probably goes without saying, but all meats must be USDA inspected. Finfish and shellfish, also creditable for infants. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, there is no evidence that waiting to introduce common allergens such as fish or shellfish beyond 4 to 6 months of age will prevent a food allergy. You can also serve cheese and cottage cheese to infants. Oh, sorry. Yes, thanks for pointing that out, Sarah. You can also move it, just so we know, but yes, totally my bad, sorry. Okay, you can also serve cheese and cottage cheese to infants. Know that cheese foods, cheese spreads, and cheese products are not credible under the infant meal pattern because they are generally higher in salt and lower in protein. And never serve babies unpasteurized milk. You can also serve infants eggs. Shell eggs and liquid pasteurized whole eggs may be offered as part of a reimbursable meal or snack. The eggs that you serve must be federally inspected, so no homegrown chicken eggs. Also, dry beans and peas are a great option for infants. Any cooked dry beans and peas, such as lentils, black beans, pinto beans, chickpeas, may be served to infants when they are ready to accept them. This includes canned beans and peas, so those are also okay. And lastly, yogurt. So store-bought, low-fat, reduced fat, or whole milk yogurts are all creditable under the infant meal pattern for babies 6 through 11 months. Only the homemade yogurts are not creditable. And we do have that sugar requirement for yogurt for older children, but it also applies to infants. So yogurts still have to meet that sugar requirement, which is that no more than 23 grams of sugar per 6 ounces of yogurt. And let's take a quick look at that one more time, just to make sure you know how to do that, how to check for that if you decide to serve sweetened yogurt to infants. So this table is coming from USDA Team Nutrition's training worksheet, and Alicia just added that resource to the chat box. So what you will need to make this determination is you will need this handout that has this table, and you'll also need your nutrition facts label. So on your yogurt, you'll see the nutrition facts label, and when you're looking at it, you'll be looking at two different things. So the serving size, which is going to be at the top, and then the total sugars, which is going to be under the total carbohydrates. So those are the two pieces of information that you need. So in this example, our serving size, we have it both in ounces or grams. Either is fine. So we're going to look at grams, 227 grams, and then our total sugars is 9 grams. So sugars are usually split up into added sugars and total sugars. We're looking at the total sugars. So our total sugars is 9 grams. So we'll go back to this table. We'll find our serving size, which is the last one on this list, 227 grams. And then this column next to it tells us that it cannot have more than 31 grams of sugars. And ours has 9, so we're good to go. So this example would be creditable. And then these are some non-creditable meat alternate options for infants. Nuts, seeds, peanut butter, and other nut or seed butters are not creditable as a part of a reimbursable meal for infants. As I already mentioned, cheese foods, cheese spreads, and cheese products are not creditable. Tofu is also not creditable for infants. And then processed meats such as hot dogs and poultry are creditable for infants, but we do recommend you try not to serve those foods to infants if you can. And then just keep in mind that some of the foods may cause choking, such as hot dogs. So if you are serving those foods to infants, just be careful and make sure you provide adequate supervision. All right, and then the grains component for infants. So all grains served must be made with enriched or whole grain meal or flour. but there is not a whole grain rich requirement for infants. Iron fortified infant cereals are credible with CACFP. Both single grain infant cereals such as wheat, oat, barley, as well as mixed grain infant cereal are creditable as long as they are iron fortified. And then to tell if an infant cereal is iron fortified, you will look at the ingredient list on the back of the infant cereal package. And as long as one of the ingredient listed is iron or ferric fumarate, electrolytic iron, then that would mean that that cereal is iron fortified. I think most of them will say that at the front of the package as well. And ready-to-eat cereals are creditable for infants, but they can only be served at snack, as well as bread and crackers. Those are only creditable at snack. And again, some of these foods can be a choking hazard. So just, you always have to provide adequate supervision whenever serving solid foods to infants. And for cereal, if you are serving those ready-to-eat cereals, there's also that sugar limit requirement, same as for I can't say that word, older children. So again, let's take a look at that sugar limit requirement and how to do that calculation. So this is, again, from the USDA Team Nutrition's training worksheet. And that tells us the serving size and then the maximum amount of sugars that can be in that serving size. So again, you will look at your nutrition facts label and you will look for those same two pieces of information. So the serving size, usually this is in grams only. And then again, the total sugars. And you'll go back to that table. You'll find your serving size, which was 30 grams for us. And we can see here that it cannot be more than 6 grams of sugars. And our example had 5. So this cereal would be creditable and would meet that sugar requirement. I'm seeing a lot of activity here in the chat. Just want to make sure that we're addressing all the questions. Okay, LinkedIn work. Thanks, Chrissy, for helping with that. Oh, John, if you're still having issues, you can always email me and I can try to help you out with that. Make sure you have it. You also should have all those links. I emailed them to you yesterday as an attachment to that email you received from me. So you should have those links there. So maybe try to see if those work for you. And if not, let me know. And Virginia has a question. If we serve Cheerios at breakfast, we still have to serve an iron fortified cereal. So Virginia, so Cheerios would be considered that ready-to-eat ready-to-eat cereal. Those are only creditable at snack. So you should not be serving that for breakfast. It wouldn't count as part of the reimbursable meal. Okay, you're welcome. And then some non-creditable cereals. Let's see. So grain-based desserts such as cookies, sweet pie crusts, donuts, cereal bars, breakfast bars, granola bars, sweet rolls, toaster pastries, cake, and brownies, including the baby varieties of these foods, are not creditable. They're high in saturated fats and added sugars. And then all those cereals that do not meet the sugar limit would also not be creditable. And then this is just a summary of some common foods that we get questions about. So all of these are not creditable infant foods and should not be served to infants. So juice, we talked about that earlier, nuts and seeds, cheese foods and spreads, tofu, honey, popcorn, peanut butter, any of the grain-based desserts, and also the artificial sweeteners. None of these are creditable for infants. And this is not a full list of non-creditable foods, but some of the more common ones. And if you have questions about something specific, You can always refer to that infant feeding guide that we shared with you at the beginning of the presentation, or let us know. Oh, Alicia just added that. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, and then we'll talk about some allergies briefly, because this does come up with infants quite a bit. So eight major allergens include milk, eggs, fish, shellfish, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, and soybeans. Guidelines from American Academy of Pediatrics state that there is no evidence to show delaying the introduction of the top 8 allergens decrease the risk of children developing food allergies. But as always, be sure to talk to the parents or guardians before introducing any new foods to infants. It's ideal if they try them at home first. And then when parents tell you it's okay, then you can go ahead and start serving those foods as well. So we'll do another poll real quick. I think this one can be a little bit confusing. Which of the following foods are not creditable with CACFP and should not be served to infants? This is again a multiple choice question. So select all that apply. I'm seeing some feedback only lets you choose one. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Let me go ahead and close it. We can talk about it since you can only pick one and there are 3 correct answers. So I'll go ahead and end this. So peanut butter, cookies, and honey would be the 3 non-creditable foods for infants, and shellfish is creditable for infants. Close this poll before I forget. Okay, so we have one last section left to cover, and that is commercial infant foods. And this is a little bit confusing. So these regulations coming from USDA, and we're going to talk about how to credit commercial baby foods, infant foods with CACFP. So commercially prepared infant foods that are packaged in a jar, plastic container, pouch, or other packaging may be creditable with CACFP. Ensure infant care providers serve food from a pouch the same way they would from a jar or container with a spoon. Spoon feeding is the most appropriate way to feed pureed or mashed foods to an infant. All right, so combination infant foods. Combination infant foods that include a mixture of 2 or more food components, such as meat or vegetables. Store-bought baby foods containing a mixture of multiple foods from the same food component would not be considered a combination food. So for example, a jar of sweet potatoes and carrots would not be considered a combination food because it's providing only one component, which is vegetables. And then since for infants, fruits and vegetables are considered one component, so it would be the same if a jar contains apples and carrots, that would still be considered one component because fruits and vegetables are considered one component. So we wouldn't treat those as combination foods for infants. But please note that combination foods should only be offered after the infant has been introduced to the individual ingredients in the combination food. So for example, before an infant is given chicken and green beans combination food, the infant should have already been introduced to both chicken and green beans. Under certain circumstances, combination foods, and those are foods that include a mixture of 2 or more food components, such as meat and vegetables, may be counted towards the reimbursable infant meal or snack in the CACFP. Some combination foods will not be creditable without additional documentation. And we'll talk about those different scenarios. And we just wanted to share this resource with you. So this is from USDA. It will help you kind of understand how to credit combination foods. So if that's something that you are purchasing and using at your center, you should definitely download this handout because I think this can be somewhat confusing. And we're going to be using this handout. We're going to be walking you through it step by step. Next. Okay, so the first step, once you're trying to decide how to credit a combination food, you first will need to look for the creditable ingredient and determine what component would that ingredient credit toward. And then so we have this chart on the screen with some common ingredients that are creditable in the CACFP. For more information on creditable foods in the infant meal pattern, please see the Appendix F in the infant food list. Appendix F, infant food list, in the infant feeding infants in the CACFP guide. And that was that link that Alicia just added as well. If the baby food contains both creditable and non-creditable ingredients, the combination food will be considered creditable with the CACFP as long as there is at least one creditable ingredient. And we'll look at that example as well. So once you looked at the ingredient list and decided what you're going to credit it towards, now we need to figure out how much of that food component is in that baby food. So there's going to be some different types of baby foods. In this example, our baby food is telling us how much of each ingredient there are. So if that's something that we're looking at, and then we determine that, oh, there's sweet potatoes, apples, and corn. So this would be that example of that situation that we're not really considering this a combination food because all three ingredients are under the same food component. So this would all count towards the fruit vegetable component. So we would not need to treat this food as a combination food. We can just go ahead and offer those 2 tablespoons. That would be the minimum required portion size for infants. And there's some different examples. So the next step is to determine if the amount of each creditable ingredient listed on the food container as a unit of volume. So there's not a requirement to list the ingredients as a unit of volume. So you will not always see that. So in this example, it is listed as a unit of volume because it is telling us that it has 4 tablespoons of sweet potato, 3 teaspoons of turkey, and 2 tablespoons of cooked grains. But there's some different examples. For example, the one in the middle is not telling us the amounts at all. And then the one on the right, it is telling us the amounts, but it's telling them in the percentages. So in these 3 different situations, we would need to do different things. So let's look at this one first. So if we are looking at a baby food that doesn't list the amounts of the ingredients at all, we would need to contact the manufacturer and ask them for a product formulation statement. So that is similar to a child nutrition label. And that's something that we just need to get from the manufacturer. And that's, there's kind of no way around it. We will not be able to claim this for CACFP reimbursement until we get that statement and figure out how much beef, carrots, macaroni, and peas are in this baby food, because we would not know how to credit it. In this situation, we do have the amounts, but they're listed in percentages. So you would either have to do some math and figure out how much of bananas, and that's the only creditable component here. So we have granola and bananas. The only creditable component would be banana in this one. So we would need to figure out how many grams of bananas are in this baby food. And to do that, you can either calculate it and figure out how many grams is 65% of 113 grams. You can also contact your nutrition consultant and send her or him, we only have ladies at this time, so send her a picture of this combination food and then ask for help. Or you can also still request that product formulation statement, and that will tell you. So again, you would need to kind of go through those two steps before you can credit this baby food. And then the last example would be this kind of baby food that does list the amounts of each ingredient. And if that's the case, then we can go ahead and credit it towards those CACFP components. So for example, we could credit this towards the sweet potato. So there are 4 tablespoons of sweet potatoes and 3 teaspoons of turkey. And then the 2 tablespoons of cooked grains would not be creditable with CACFP, but we could credit the sweet potato and the turkey. So if we gave them the whole container, then we could write down 4 tablespoons of sweet potatoes and 3 teaspoons of turkey on our production record. Any questions about the combination foods so far? Look, this is somewhat confusing. Okay, so let's just briefly talk about the required food amounts, because I think this is something that might come up whenever you are serving those combination foods, because often there are other ingredients in that combination food. So I guess the first thing to note is, if infants are eating combination foods, they have already shown that they are developmentally ready and accepting each food in the combination baby food. So you must ensure that the combination baby food package provides the full required amounts of the food component. And if it does not, then you would need to offer more food from that component to meet the full amount. And you will just refer to the infant meal patterns that we discussed earlier to make sure to look at those minimum required amounts and make sure that you're meeting that requirement. So I think often the case would be, so if you serve this combination food, you would meet the sweet potato requirement because you only need 2 tablespoons of fruits or vegetables, but you wouldn't meet the requirement for turkey because 3 tablespoons wouldn't meet that minimum required portion size. So you would need to offer additional foods from that meat alternate component in order to claim that meal for CACFP reimbursement. So that's something to consider whenever you are choosing to serve combination foods. The best practice, and also to make it a little bit easier for you, is to buy commercially prepared infant foods containing only 1 food component. That will eliminate the need of requesting the product formulation statement or doing the math, or offering too much of one component and not enough of the other, and then not being able to claim that meal with the CACFP. But it's your choice. And if you do choose to serve combination foods, and if you have questions about serving combination foods, you can always contact your nutrition consultants or take a look at that resource we shared with you. And then if you have questions, you can always contact us. And then just a few reminders and regulations. All infants less than 6 months must be held during bottle feedings. Bottle propping is prohibited by the Colorado Department of Human Services licensing regulations. To prevent tooth decay, do not allow children to fall asleep with a bottle. Bottles of formula or breast milk must never be warmed in a microwave oven. Infants consuming solids must have constant adult supervision during meals and snacks. This is to prevent choking and to meet the infant's feeding needs. Serving infant cereal in a bottle is not allowed unless you have a special diet statement telling you that you need to do that for a medical reason. All right, so that is all we had to cover today. So we talked about a lot today. We discussed formula and breast milk feeding requirements, infant meal pattern requirements, including the required documentation for infants. We talked about infant feeding forms, infant production records, and infant ROMs. We also reviewed infant food components and discussed creditable and non-creditable infant foods. And lastly, we learned how to credit store-bought infant combination foods with CECFP. All right, and we are going to provide you with a certificate for attending this training. In order to receive your certificate, you do need to complete the post test. And Alicia just added that link to the chat box. You can go ahead and click on it right now and complete the post test now. Or I will also send an email to everyone with a link to the post test so you can take it at a later time. But don't forget to take it because that is how I send you your certificates. So if you do not complete the post test, you will not get your certificate. And once you do complete the post test, please allow 3 to 5 days in order to receive your certificate. It just takes a little bit of time to get those ready. All right, and we do have 9 minutes left. So we do have enough time for questions. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask them. And I'm going to look through the chat and make sure we didn't miss anything. You can always type your questions in the chat as well. I'm not seeing any questions. I don't think I missed anything. I hope this was helpful. This is our very first infant training. So we tried to pack in a lot of information. Hopefully this wasn't overwhelming. All right, well, if there aren't, oh, I see some things coming up. Okay, great. I'm glad this is helpful. All right, well, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining today. Again, I'll send you an email right after this with a link to the post test, and I will send you that document with all the documents we referenced today, with links to those documents so you can access them. If you have any questions, if you think of any questions, feel free to email me or call your nutrition consultant. We're here for you. Otherwise, we will let you go. If you are joining us for our regular Zoom trainings, in 2 weeks, we will be starting round 4. So we're going to be beginning with module 1, which is CECFP record keeping requirements. All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here. Have a great afternoon.